Welcome to Wake the Bear Radio with your host, Brandon Johnson, Chris Hurst, and Ron Powers.
Roar.
Oh, yes. Hear that roar.
Come on.
Great roar. Things are waking up. The bear is waking up. The bear is California, and we are part of that awakening movement. And,
yes, patriots are becoming Christians. Patriots becoming Christians, and Christians becoming patriots, and California is waking up.
They are, one person at a time. Hopefully scores of people at a time. But how was your weekend? I mean, it was such a great weekend, celebrating Resurrection Sunday.
Yep. He is risen.
You guys do anything special?
He is risen indeed. Yes. I mean, just celebrating the whole story of the redemptive story of Jesus, the God-man. He was fully God, fully man, and what he did for us. Wow, what a great celebration from Passover to Resurrection Day.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, fantastic. We had my wife and I and my daughter drove down to Big Sur and just saw the beauty of God's creation. So all of the spring flowers. I can see why the powers that be decided or chose to make it happen in this period of time, because you just see so much life being restored after a big rainy season and all the new flowers. But I just remember that, Jesus in that grave 3 days, 3 nights and rose from the dead. And that's why that made the greatest impact in human history and in the universe, that event. So it changed everything.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. We went to my in-laws' house first, and then my parents' house, and it was really good. And the neat thing about my mother, she always likes to, she'll have all these eggs, and in the eggs are questions about the Bible story. And so we each get to answer that. And so that was really neat. It'd just be like, how many times did the crow when Peter, denied Christ, and just things like that, trivia. But it got us all talking about it, and actually had to do a couple searches. So I learned actually a couple things myself from it. So it was really good. And then Brandon, it was nice that you mentioned the 3 days and 3 nights. We had this covered this week in a bear pause.
Yeah.
And just not to get over technical or techie, but traditions make void the word of God. And, all my life I've been taught, Good Friday, Sunday morning. And it's like, okay, Friday night to Saturday night, that's one day and night. And then wait, can't even get to Sunday night. It's already risen on Sunday morning. So it's like a day and a half. So where's this 3 days, 3 nights? And that was the one sign, when they came to Jesus, show us a sign that you're the Messiah. He says, I'll just give you one. And this is the one of Jonah, as he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights. So shall he be in the son of in the ground for 3 days and 3 nights.
Yep.
And it's always bothered me. And so it was neat to have it explained. And this chart, I just found it. It was just something you could do a search on images for 3 days and 3 nights. But it really clearly laid it out and how the scriptures, So when you have the ladies, Mary Magdalene and Mary Martha and all them. They're waiting till after the Sabbath to buy the spices, but they prepared the spices before the Sabbath and then they rested. It's like, it's a contradiction. But if you have 2 Sabbaths, because John calls the Sabbath a high day Sabbath, the Passover, that can happen any day of the week. So it was neat to see it finally worked out technically. And it really just encourages my faith. And it just shows that sometimes we fall for tradition. And as a result, churches fall for maybe the false narratives all around us because they don't want to make waves. And a lot of times this has been exposed. You show them and they go, well, what difference does it make? He rose from the dead. That's all that counts. But it's like you miss out the richness of the Hebrew Old Testament. Chris, you were talking a little bit earlier about that, about the feast days and the unleavened bread and all. You got to comment on that. You want to?
Yeah, I mean, the feast days are a day to celebrate and they really are open heavens. They're special days. They're time gates. God appointed him. He said, for all of time, I want you to observe this. And without being legalistic, I think it's a great Passover. And Shavuot, which is Pentecost, and then the Feast of Tabernacles, which is Rosh Hashanah, and the whole Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. They are great days to celebrate because we get to go through the cycle of the redemption story over and over again, and we can see Jesus in every step, every one of those feasts. Now we have 50 days from Passover to Pentecost, and we know originally the law was given on Mount Sinai at Pentecost, but woohoo, in the new covenant, the Holy Spirit was also given. It was a return to God's answer to confusing the language. I think Babel was that they all heard the gospel being spoken in their own tongue. And so it was, he's brilliant. God is brilliant. And we just have to get out of our Western minds, because none of this is really a challenge for him. If we put ourselves in the story, then our hearts become soft, and we understand how brilliant these feast days and this whole storyline of Jesus in the feast is.
I was animated by the reality that, the Holy Week was the week of Passover. And if you follow the Bible from Exodus 12, God told them Nisan will be your first month of the year, and on the 10th day, choose a lamb for each family to be sacrificed as a sacrifice for every family. And and then on the 14th day, you're to sacrifice it. Well, the feast of that choosing of the lamb, it says bring it into your household and keep it in your household for 4 days, and on the fourth day kill it. Right. So Jesus came in on the triumphal entry on the 10th day of Nisan. He was in his father's house in the city of Israel for 4 days, and then he was crucified on Wednesday. That fits the actual pattern of what God had foreordained for Passover. And Jesus.
Yes, and then there's the cleanse. It's the Feast of Unleavened Bread too, and his cleansing the temple was really part of that process of cleansing the sin and iniquity and the perversion that had been made, the mockery that the religious system had made of his father's house. And so he cleansed it as he came on that triumphal entry, and totally surprised everybody. I mean, what a lesson in when God has things in mind, we need to set aside our agenda and try and understand what is he up to, because they became afraid, they became offended, they scattered, they were in despair. They thought, oh no, this whole thing we've been buying into for the last 3 years, it's all over. We wasted our time. And they just didn't understand. It was the greatest day in history, and God knew exactly what he was doing to redeem all the earth. All the earth. All we have to do is reach out and say yes to his offer.
Yeah. Amen. And isn't it amazing that that's the way God does it? Is what seems impossible for man and for humanity is only possible by God. And the area where Satan thought he won his greatest victory is when he actually lost. It was his greatest defeat. And for us, it was the great, that sacrifice and that resurrection. That was the victory over death and sin, and Satan lost it all in that battle, and he got the ultimate April Fool's joke, going on. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of cyclical patterns too. And that's how you see the fingerprint of God. I mean, even with the Feast of Pentecost, the giving of the law, but also the giving of the Spirit. And Paul says that there's death by the law and life through the Spirit. And it's interesting that when the law was given, there was 3,000 people that were killed. That was when they went throughout the camp and killed because they were doing worshiping the calf, the golden calf. But on Pentecost, when that happened, there was 3,000 people that came into the church, it says, that day. And so you see that pattern, and we see the patterns, what we're going through even now, as far as deliverance. There's a lot of similarities to Egypt and Israel, and I do believe that we are Israel, but there's a lot of crossovers there. Absolutely. And so as a result, it gives me a lot of comfort to see these things happen. You think even with Trump, you know, oh, how can they do this to him? He's losing. He's losing. I think he's a 5D chess player. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant, outsmarted these people. Even, just jumping on this last week with Alvin Braggs, with the New York Manhattan DA decides to go after Donald Trump and he indicts them. And it's funny because everyone's like, well, what's he indicted for? Well, there's 34 charges. Well, what are they? Well, I can't really tell you that. I mean, he's just flying by the seat of his pants. He doesn't have a wing and a prayer for anything. It's just corruption at its finest. But you think, oh, how can this happen to Donald Trump? But you know what? I think Donald Trump wanted, as last week I said, he wanted to be arrested because every time he does this, he breaks new ground for what's going to happen for them. He has to pave the way for this to happen to them. And you don't want to be setting precedents the whole way long because people are just going to push back. Like, this has never been done. You can't do that. Like you can't go after, a congressperson's taxes. Well, that's what they did to him. Right. And he fought it tooth and nail. It's not because he didn't want to show anything, because he was sparkly clean, like 11 million pages he gave for all it. Yeah, they couldn't find anything.
That's right.
But you know what he did? He pushed it all the way up to the very, very, very tippy top, the Supreme Court. And they said, nope, they can see your stuff. They set precedents. Now, when you go after the deep state and all these people that are corrupted and compromised, you don't have to say like, oh, this has never been done. It's like, well, yeah, you remember when you did that to Trump? What's good for the goose, good for the gander, and we've already set precedents. Well, this thing with Braggs, he is a state DA, district attorney. And what he has done is he has gone after a federal prosecution, but he's a state. And what that is doing is that is opening up the door. Like, for instance, the Clintons, they ran a lot of corruption out of Arkansas. Right. You've heard of the term like Arkansided and all that stuff. And those guys are so corrupt, but they ran a lot of these operations. Their foundation, the Clinton Foundation, they ran a lot of that out of there. Well, there's a governor or a Republican DA in Arkansas. And so if he wants to go after the Clintons himself now for all of this, the door's been open because Braggs opened that door. Before it couldn't be. It was before it's like, oh, we'll do the DOJ. Well, we know how responsive the DOJ is for trying to prosecute things that are true. They just go after things that are false because they're so biased. So they're completely compromising and corrupt. Well, now there are Republican or hopefully just MAGA DAs throughout this country in various counties. I mean, it goes down to county level. So it is opening up a major, major door that they're going to regret they ever opened. Pandora's box times 10. So I'm actually happy to see this. I think this was all his plan all along, just like the taxes. They always come up with nothing burgers. So he's really just putting them in, guiding them. This is how you're going to go. This is how we're going to take you down. And, it's amazing. I think we lost Chris there. I think she lost connection. She'll probably jump right back on.
Well, I think that I was going to say about that, Ron, is that, there's just, there's so the plan that we're watching is, this movie we're watching of being played out is really an opportunity for those who are truly for this nation to stand up and fight. And those who are the roaches who have really just looked out for their own interests, or they're actually rhinos. They're actually part of the establishment uniparty, and they're in collusion with the other Democrats to accomplish that's coming out. And one of the ways that's coming out is that there's more and more evidence of the January 6th, that there were, federal agents on the ground at January 6th, and more it's coming out, video after video and clip after clip showing these federal agents. And what have the rhinos in Congress done to get some of those people out of prison? Like nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Right?
They're exposed too.
And that's going to expose, like, these people there are people in government that do not care about the common man, common woman, and they're showing their colors. And I think that's what we're in that stage. And it kind of just goes back to the same thing we've heard before. You can't tell people what's happened. You got to show them. They've got to see it for themselves. And I think that's kind of some of the things that we're actually kind of seeing right now is with all the war drums being beat with, the Taiwan and all the trans battles with, what the left really is about, with, attacking Trump. You've got to kind of let the darkness get darker, and so that the light can get brighter, and so that you can see who's really on whose team. And we're in that right now. It's becoming clear and clear. You're even people in the church, they're going to have to make a decision. Are they going to stand for truth and for Orthodox Christianity? Are they going to fight for others who are believers, or are they going to take the side of the world, to take the side of the establishment, take the side of the deep state? And it really is a battle we're in. It's not just a physical battle, but it's a spiritual battle we're in. And we're just seeing some of the physical manifestations of that reality. And I just want to say this, and I say this often, really people are not our enemy. It's not really people that are, although there are people that have lined themselves with the enemy, people are not our enemy. There is a real Satan. He is about deception. He is about control. He is about, deceiving and controlling people, bringing them into bondage. That's why, Easter is so amazing, because it was a picture of Satan's control and deception. Egypt was, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. That was a picture of humanity being enslaved by the forces of darkness. And obviously that story turns out where, Pharaoh is destroyed, his entire army is destroyed in the waters of the Red Sea. But and so there will be people who choose darkness who will be destroyed, but the people are not our enemy. It's Satan who's our enemy. And so we just have to continue to remember that as we are exposing these things. We're talking about the trans war, we're talking about Trump and people attacking Trump, we're talking about Taiwan and the potential war. It's not people that we're attacking, even though people have chosen to align themselves with Satan. They've also, most of them also are just full on deceived themselves, and they're in bondage, in control of Satan.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, just an example of deception people don't even realize. I mean, this last weekend, right? I mean, you remember this one, right? I mean, it's like, these are Easter egg hunts at churches, and it's just about, I mean, the word Easter, Ishtar, that's the Babylonian goddess, and the eggs, that was all fertility in association, because she got impregnated by a sunbeam. She was Nimrod's wife, and he died, and she gets pregnant somehow. And so, but that is the icon, and it's just church after church. I see, St. Luke's here. You've got just which ones? I mean, just McDowell Church, First Baptist Church, Emmanuel Lutheran, or United. I mean, it just goes down and down, and there's just no shortage. And it's just like, how can people fall for this? And people go, oh, I won't get deceived. I know things that are true and things that aren't. And yet, here we are on a Sunday morning with eggs, and, and some people could say, oh, we celebrate both. But what happens is it's always a compromise. There's always a price to pay. There are a lot of people in this country and in this world that think it's only about fertility and eggs, because that's really all they've heard. They haven't stepped in. It's not like a Thanksgiving that's really hard to corrupt right now. It's like this one had a couple hundred years to corrupt, not a couple, lots, a millennium worth. And so, but everybody is subject to degrees of deception, and they may not even know it. I mean, there was a time it didn't bother me either. And now I had a 4-year-old. I mean, she's all grown up now, late 20s. But when she was 4, we were going to do Easter eggs, and I told her these are called pagan Easter eggs. And so she was all excited, and she was actually at church, and she's like, oh, this afternoon we're going to do a pagan Easter egg hunt. And all my friends looked at us like, what are you talking about? Pagan?
Yeah, I taught my daughter right.
Gotta let her know the truth. Said, she could have fun, but I want her to at least know the origins. And so,
what you empower, you're championing what you agree with. So it's important. Hey, I just want to make a comment. I got knocked off, and I think we're having a little interference from outside, because they blocked me from trying to get back on.
Wow.
And I don't know if you saw the little interruption that happened. Well, you may not have noticed it, Ron.
We noticed you off the screen.
Well, that wasn't just it. There was somebody who interrupted our space. So just know that, this is, we are at war. It's a communication wars. And speaking of war, did you see what President Trump, he truthed today?
Yeah, all
No, I
caps.
didn't.
Go for it.
Yeah, he actually truthed a very simple truth on Truth Social. He put World War III, and he didn't put anything else. And we know that he's been talking about it. He's been saying he can prevent it in one day, but it's very concerning. I don't know what you think about it, but I think that he said that he is the only way to solve this problem with China. So I know he's talking about the increase of activity with China and Taiwan. He said the only way to solve this problem with China and every other problem that we have, is to get rid of Biden. We know Biden is bought and paid for. We know that he works for the CCP, that he's doing business with them. His son and family have been front moneying black money. He's been doing that with Ukraine too. So he's bought off on both sides of the war fronts that we are looking at.
Wow.
And so he's an infiltration from within to weaken this nation, to create chaos, to prevent solutions, to create what I think are financial destitutions that are pre-planned, to interrupt our supply lines, to weaken our infrastructure, and to allow an internal invasion, I think, through open borders. And it's aiding the economic collapse. It's weakening our military. And now we have so much distrust on the world stage. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a little embarrassed to say I'm an American, not because I don't love this nation, but because the leadership in this nation is so misrepresenting our values.
Yeah.
It's very clear that we're in a battle. I mean, you're seeing things across the globe, foreign countries making fun of the resident, and there's so much you can make fun of, because he just can barely make a complete sentence. He's supporting transgenderism from the White House. I mean, just complete insanity is going on in our government, in our military. I mean, and when you have a weak leadership in one of the powerfulest nations in the world, tyrants will use that as an opportunity to surround Taiwan, and so take over Ukraine. That they know that the weak person and won't do anything. And and I think they didn't try any of that during Trump's, even though they said, oh no, Trump will lead us into World War III, and then he shakes hands with Kim Jong-un and makes friends. Oh no, Trump's going to collapse the economy, and it's the most powerful economy we've ever had in American history. And then of course the economy sucks now. But the same people won't give the same evaluation to the person currently in the White House. So
yeah, Biden definitely gives plenty of ammunition for everyone to use. I mean, I talk about Comedy Central, maybe not in this country because ours are bought and sold, but other countries. I was looking at one that was in the Middle East, and I think it was Saudi Arabia, and they show a guy that looks like Biden going up the stairs to a plane, and he just keeps falling and falling and falling, and it has some like Benny Hinn type of music to it, and it was just even though it didn't have to be in English, it was just hilarious. Only hilarious because of maybe my feelings towards this actor. If it were a legitimate president that was trying to do the best for the country, I would be offended. But it's like, okay, these people get it. These people, they think of him as a laughing stock as well. And he's very embarrassing. He doesn't know where he's standing. And there's no jab against people that are old. I mean, it does happen. It may happen to me someday, but for him, he shouldn't.
But you won't be running the government. You're not going to be in government doing
it. Right. That's right.
Yeah. You want your healthiest, mentally sharp person running this country, the most powerful man in the world. You want to have somebody who's got his wits about him, that is leadership qualities, right? I mean, a great leader is a servant, humble, but also they can act when they need to, and they can point things out. We need to do this now. He's just like, where's my ice cream? Oh, that's a cute little girl. I mean, he's just all over the place, And so it's really distressing. I don't have a lot of confidence. You were asking about how's this make you feel, and I don't have that confidence, especially with the war drums that are banging. There's been a pickup in China and Taiwan, and that's big.
Yes, and our present administration they're not saying anything to the American people. They are not addressing the obvious elephant in the room. There are lots of other distractions going on, both domestically and even over in Ukraine, and then Israel with the missiles. And it just is very disturbing to think that our leadership is not. I mean, McCarthy's the highest person in the land who's actually addressed it recently with the president of Taiwan and their meeting. And so the fact that it seems to be increasing and no one's trying to stop it is very disturbing.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that Trump did and that I loved is he always called out the media when they were lying. They're not telling the truth. Like, tell the truth. I mean, that's one of the things I love about Carrie Lake. She's like, I was in media for 20 years. When I wasn't able to speak freely about what was going on, and I was being told what stories I could do, I'm done. She quit right on live air. Here we know that the battle in Ukraine is not going well. We've heard, rumors, and then you get this the Pentagon intel leak that comes out and says, yeah, Russia's about to win this entire war, and we get nothing from the White House. That no one's telling the truth. That all this money we poured into Ukraine has been wasted. I mean, there's photos coming out of President Zelensky, and on his desk he's got white substance on his desk, which there's some of the American money paid for some cocaine blow on his desk. I mean, we know that this the money's not going to where it's supposed to go, and this is just a proxy war to give, and people are laundering money. So, I mean, then this whole thing with the Pentagon intel leak coming out, that the details of that are just crazy.
Yeah, especially since it's leaking from the Pentagon. I mean, it's coming from the highest source, the Joint Chiefs. They're only. I was listening to an interview by Kash Patel earlier, and the only source, there are only a few people who could have leaked this, and they're all some of the highest intelligence people and top secret operatives in our nation. And where's Milley? I mean, Milley's not addressing anything, and that certainly the press isn't letting us know, and it's not part of the White House press conference. They're not speaking anything about it. So I know that part of the intel leak was that Ukraine is not doing well. And there's a secret, what the leak said, there's a secret munition and armament supply line being developed with South Korea. But for some reason, nobody's supposed to know about it from our position, because then they might know that the Ukrainians are doing terribly. And they only have until about the 23rd to 27th of May before their air support dome is going to be, it's rendered useless. And so like the Iron Dome over Israel, they have some air support, but it's degenerating. And right now there are holes in it. And so the narrative that Ukraine is doing very poorly, and where's the money that we said, $250 billion dollars. He couldn't have snorted that much coke up his nostrils.
I don't know. The guy's pretty crazy. He goes off the rails. I mean, I've seen some of his acting. Wearing spandex, dancing, and and tights and midriffs, and really bizarre stuff.
He's an occultist. He's a Luciferian. He's a Satanist. He is perverted, and he is not he's installed, and he's playing the position that he was given to play.
Yeah,
these people are so unimaginative. I mean, like, who are we going to pick? and they actually find an actor that plays the president of Ukraine. I don't know if you've seen any of the movies. He was a simple guy, and he's just like, and I think he was a teacher or something, and they said, oh, he needs to be the president, and he becomes the president, and so he plays this president, and they're like, that's a good idea. Maybe he should be a real one. Let's install him. He already knows
That
how
was
to
a
act.
psyop. That was probably the psyop all from the very beginning. I mean, that, if you think the rest of the world's deep state haven't figured out how to utilize Hollywood, I mean, their own Hollywood versions of things, put the guy in this case, we'll build him up, and then we'll make him the president, and people will, and that's what happened is he like overwhelmingly won the election because people had already just kind of seen him on playing as an actor on a movie as president. Then, he must be, I mean, it's just the way the psyops work, and so people voted him in, if that was even a real vote.
There was that color revolution, so I don't think he was voted in. And once again, it's the CIA coming in to interfere with the duly elected president of another nation that doesn't fit the narrative that the CIA wants to bring forward. They want to disrupt that place because that is their largest center for child trafficking, for money laundering, and for hiding out. I mean, it's a big George Soros area. So, yeah. I mean, that is their safety line, their little island between Asia and Europe, and they didn't want it disrupted. But they don't mind killing thousands and thousands of innocent people, all those people that have been displaced. My heart breaks for them. There are so many refugees that have gone out of that nation and they've fled. And I mean, we know now they force women into the military, and little young boys, prepubescent boys under 12 years old, they're going and saying, you're going to the front lines now. So those that were just little guys,
so unfair.
Mean, it's child soldiers. So that this whole thing is so despicable, and it's because of our ability to do the smoke and mirrors as though we're living a real thing, and then we turn off real news and we watch this show. This
wag the dog,
a total fiasco.
Yeah,
it's a wag the dog situation.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, we just gotta continue to pray that God will expose that and expose the forces of darkness that are controlling that. I mean, Ukraine was voted the second most corrupt nation in the world by independent organization. And then, of course, the Azov battalion we've heard about, our own Congress designated them in 2015 as a terrorist organization. And now they're fighting for, they're fighting on the side. And they're the ones that are probably bringing these children into the front lines and making them child soldiers, because they have the Azovs are Nazis. They have no concern for human life. They have only concern for what they get out of it and what they're accomplishing. So it's pretty wicked.
Such an upside down world. Everything is opposite. It's like I was listening to Doug Collins the other day, Right Side Broadcasting, and he did a deep dive on Putin, understanding Vladimir Putin. And, we have this leftover ideology of communism, right? The Soviet Union, communism, the party, and how hard it was. Well, by the time Boris Yeltsin was in power there, he had single digits approval, and the Soviet Union collapsed. It absolutely is just fallen apart in the worst of every way. Food, supply chains, people were done with that. And so when it was built back up, and Putin was one of those people that helped build it, it was anything but communism. In fact, Putin allowed statues of people to be erected that fought communism, people like the czars and stuff like that in the dynasties before, but also people that actively fought against communism. And here Putin allows this type of statue and memorials to be put up. He was giving reverence to these people, part of their history. And so you see that, and it's like, well, what communist person would do that? Another one was one of the first things they did when the communists took over the Soviet Union was get rid of religion, right? You had to go underground. It was illegal.
Right.
And you look now where Putin is touting the scriptures in his speeches, protecting the church they have a kind of a state church, which is the Russian Orthodox, completely different. I mean, even broke my stereotype. I was really surprised when I actually started to listen to some of his speeches this past year. And I'm like, wow, he's got them in the audience and they're wearing the full garb and, they're not underground. And then I hear from the evangelical community that, yeah, the feedback they've got is he's been very, very kind or tolerant of the church.
Right.
And it's not getting in their way, and here it's just the opposite. Here is supposed to be, a light, on a hill for all to see, and God bless America and all that stuff. But yet we see persecution everywhere, trying to shut down churches or your hate speech. If you quote certain verses, that just happen to go against the latest trends of sin and debauchery, we quote it and all of a sudden we get in trouble. People have been arrested for just praying on the sidewalk, not even talking to anybody outside of abortion clinics, And so you see that here and you see it there, a complete upside down world. And you see that with Ukraine as well, it's crazy.
Well, and then the people that they're controlling in Ukraine, the people that they're actually putting underground are the church, the Orthodox Church, and the churches, Christian churches in Ukraine are actually being controlled and shut down. So we do not have a media who is actually investigating the actual war that's going on over there, and they are not being true, which just goes back to all of the different wars we fought in, how much of them were controlled and orchestrated by a deep state who had a plan that was alternate to truth and justice in the American way. It's like that's why I'm concerned about Taiwan. It's like who's at play? Who has something to gain by taking Taiwan? What's going on in Taiwan that the dark hats would want to protected? What's going on that the white hats would want exposed? What's going on in China? We already know the types of things that go on in China. So there's always more going on than we're being told in the media. It's very clear that they tell us the dumbest, most simple narrative, and just expect everybody to believe it.
Yeah. I don't understand, to be honest. I don't understand this whole thing with Taiwan. I mean, part of it is let's start World War III. I get that, the 16-year plan, deep state wants to take down this country and you need a superpower to do it. But then I remember Nancy Pelosi going to see Taiwan and China was having a fit, or at least it appeared to be. It could be all optics, but it's just like, okay, are you trying to poke a giant to take us down because that's what you want? Or are you really against China? But then again, you're totally bought out because, so many people are just completely bought out and stand up for China. They don't, go after them for anything, the trade agreements, the trade deals, the stealing of secrets, all those things. And so I'm not sure what's real at this point. I'm just watching and taking note.
Yeah, but it could have a very real consequence if there is nuclear war. I mean, we all have young people in our family that it could affect. I think that big X factor of what in the world could happen. Supply lines could be interrupted, difficult abilities to get food and supplies, even equipment, our infrastructure to maintain it, things for our cars, our computers, our communications. There are so many things that could happen in the next bit. And springtime, we were talking earlier, springtime is kind of the time of war. In the Bible, it was springtime, the time for kings to go to war. That's when King David didn't go to war. But really, this is a time where the weather is better and where the nations start doing their saber kind of clashing, and that the unknown is very disturbing. So we need to know and have security in something besides our own nation. And we really need that relationship with God and to know that we are secure in him. It doesn't guarantee that nothing bad will happen to us, but these are very concerning times.
Yeah, I mean, Sebastian Gorka said the China warships have encircled Taiwan under the guise of military exercises, exactly the same excuses that Putin gave when he amassed troops on the border for invading Ukraine. Biden has made all of this possible, and I think that's the key, is the weak leadership in the White House, and we're seeing it happen. So we just need to be praying, because we don't know the end from the beginning, like the Lord does. He knows what he's doing. We just need to be prepared, for anything. I mean, we need to have food in our home, be able to help feed our neighbors. We need to be ready for a comms, dropping of communications going down. Because we are told by multiple sources there will be some additional false flags and scare events coming. So, I could see them easily trying to turn us into a war to create a scare event. So, and there's just so much going on to be aware of.
That may be what it takes to wake people up. I hate to say it each week, but just the news story of a fear of something like that is probably not enough. But if you lose a small town or something really, some collateral damage. I mean, I think about what happened in 9/11, 3,000 people, but that affected 300 million people. And if you look at it percentage wise, it's a very small percentage, although it was a huge number, huge thing, terrible tragedy. But look at the impact that it had, besides bizarre, legislation like Patriot Act. But
Patriot Act.
I mean, today we still have to, go through extra lines to get on the plane, and,
travel is so bizarre.
They haven't really found anybody that way, from what I've read, but they found an awful lot of shoplifters that run those lines, the TSA and stuff. They, people would take things and stuff. It was a really interesting article on that. They found like 500 cases of that across the country, but not a single case of finding a terrorist boarding a plane. But anyway,
unintended consequences of these things that are happening. I mean, 9/11, bringing in the Patriot Act, making it so it's legal for you to spy on Americans, and using the FISA courts. I mean, now they've got one that's come up right now, and you guys are probably familiar with the Restrict Act, which is an attempt to stop China from being able to mine your data through TikTok. So they're going to ban TikTok, but also they're going to make it possible so that you aren't allowed to use a VPN. They're going to make it illegal for you to use a VPN, and they're going to make it illegal. They basically make it so that the Commerce Department can actually access all of your files on your computer and your phones. And it's called the Restrict Act. So they create this paper tiger. Well, China and TikTok's really bad, so we're going to create this legislation so that we can access all of your communications legally, right? And this is what's going. We have to be really careful. I mean, and Lindsey Graham was like one of the chief
co-founders.
He is not a good man. He is not a good man.
Oh, he was clueless on that. Jesse Waters asked him that. He's like, so, hey, what do you think about this bill? It's actually going to cause everyone to be, looked over by the government, and the government can. And he's like, I'm not for that. And he goes, well, you're actually a co-sponsor of that. Did you know that? And he's like,
your name's on the bill right here.
Wrong, I'll change it. He was on the spot. And so he either is not doing his job reading these bills that he is co-sponsoring, or he is just backpedaling because he was so put on the spot by Jesse Waters. It was really quite amazing to see that happen. And so, the Restrict Act, that you definitely want to call your congressperson, say, do not do this, do not go down this road. It's very similar to even the digital currency that's supposed to come out this week. They were supposed to start that going. And if that happens, and word needs to get out, people need to be telling everyone, do not do this. This is not about convenience. This is about absolute loss of any freedom you have to spend the money the way you want to. Because as we have seen already, they can shut down your bank accounts. They can shut down your ability. And so let's do a scenario in the future. If you have these, 15-minute cities or something where you can't really travel more than 15 minutes from your city. Well, how they'll do that is you go to, hey, let's go grab some groceries or, gas, and you go outside that 15 minutes. and all of a sudden your card doesn't work. And it's like, why can't I buy this? It's because we don't want you out that far. We want you to stay within your city. That's how it can happen. And we know from even Canada, when we had all the truckers doing the trucker strike, and they went around, I can't remember if it was Ottawa or what, but they went around the capital and just blockaded. And what happened? All of their accounts got frozen. They couldn't even get money for food or gas. And they're like, and they're just like, you have to get out. We've locked every one of your accounts up. Even people that were supporting had their accounts affected. So there's a lot of power. Well, if you had cash, you can at least, survive, but they could starve you out within days, if you're not prepared, with extra food and all that stuff, and you have no money. So what do? You start bartering, or, so very
Cash
dangerous.
is king.
Yeah.
Cash is king. I mean, I would say right now, everybody hearing our show, go get some cash out and start paying your bills in cash. Start going to the store and paying cash as much as you possibly can to push back against. And yeah, it might be a little bit less convenient, but you've got, that same $100 bill that you spend somewhere will be used over and over and over and over again. And it won't be taxed like it will. And it won't be monitored like it would if it was going through this digital means. So.
Yeah, speaking of some things in the economy, did you see that there's a bill that was trying to introduce the gold standard back to the Federal Reserve? It was introduced this weekend, and I was kind of excited. Andy Biggs from Arizona and another couple of congressmen put it together, and it's called HR 2435 if you want to research it. But basically, it's the purpose is trying to get us back on the gold standard, which, hey, that sounds really, really good to me.
Yep.
The Federal Reserve, they want the dollar to get a set value in gold, and that the ability to pay with gold or with money would be the same. So there's not this changing due to what the government wants, not just printing money helter-skelter. So the return to the gold standard would probably curtail a lot of the economic damage that's going on right now, especially the inflation, the federal debt, and this whole instability with the banks right now. So I'm excited that 3 congressmen put this out. I am a bit concerned that every time something with the going back to the gold standard occurs, people seem to pass away very quickly, and that there are people who do not want that to happen. Many people think that's why Kennedy got assassinated, and that his desire to get back on a precious metal system was part of that. So be watching for this Gold Standard Restitution Act, it's called, and let's if it goes through the Senate, hopefully it won't be vetoed on Biden's desk.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
It'd be interesting to see. Actually, what it should do is kick off a full investigation of those that took us off. I know most of them are all past, but propagated it. And so it could never happen again. People need to be educated. It's not like, oh, let's just keep flip-flopping back and forth as, the trends dictate. It's like, well, why are we where we're at? There's a good chance we could go back on a gold standard because it is so unhealthy right now. The fiat system, the fake money ran its course, and you can't do anymore. There's more debt than there's money in the world, or gold in the world. So it's obviously can't continue. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully,
and I guess the Federal Reserve has kept how much gold we actually have a big secret. So nobody really knows how much do we have. And part of this this bill is to give 24 months for the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury to give the information of how much gold we actually have in their coffers, so that I mean, we know pretty much what other nations have, but nobody seems to know what the Federal Reserve has.
Yeah, like Fort Knox, is it just empty? guarding an empty. I mean, nobody knows what's in there. The pictures are like really old pictures of bars. You have no idea where they're at, but you don't have an audit like, oh yeah, this is, at least I have not seen that. People have been trying to
Yeah,
do
I've
that for years.
heard a lot of underground reports that the Vatican has a ton of gold underground and under the Vatican. So, I mean, I've been to the Vatican Museum. They've got a lot of gold above the ground. So, I wonder how much they have under the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I
It
think
reminds me of what was it? Saint Francis. He took that oath of poverty, and what was it? The Pope said,
the
I
Pope
can no
brought him to
longer
the
say
Vatican. He
silver
goes,
and gold have I none.
we can no longer say silver and gold have I none. And he
Yep.
goes, yes, but we also can no longer say get up and walk to a man
Yep.
who's the church lost its
Amen.
power to.
Yep. Absolutely. So what else is going on?
Those are some of the battles that we're facing. I think the big battle that has really been going on, and I think it's really, I think, one, to show us just how corrupt the left is, to this whole trans battle, to try to deny fundamental reality and demand everybody else deny it and go along. And there's people starting to fight back. I mean, I'm looking like it. The swimmer, she's like fighting back against this whole thing and saying it's not okay that that a biological man was beaten, who tied with, was given the photo op as the winner, and she went before and gave an account and just like, this is not okay. And then there was a big mob of trans activists who were violently trying to attack her.
Yeah, that was in our state. It was Riley Gaines, and she came in number 2. She was swimming for Kentucky, the University of Kentucky, at the NCAA swim championship, and she got beat. So she is now pushing back and bringing up not just the unfairness of the sports, but also that there's grooming going on of our kids, that there are locker room issues and bathroom issues, and this whole unfairness in the sports. I mean, that the deceptive terms are out there. And so she was at the San Francisco State University this weekend, and it might have been on Thursday or Friday, but a mob surrounded her. She was sequestered, even though she had university police, but who knows how good they are.
Yeah.
They surrounded her, and she was locked in a room for 3 hours because it was unsafe. She did get hit by what she calls a man in a dress. And so she was struck, and she is going to file some lawsuits against him. And basically, she was there just to give her view, to have a discussion about women in sports, and to talk about that the inclusion of transgender athletes is really stealing from our girls, our little girls in sports, and our women in sports. And so they're using this deceptive language that's supposed to convince you that that you need to tolerate this, like gender affirming healthcare. That's the transitional care, gender affirming. So if you're a man in a dress, you can call yourself, obviously, we know that identification as a woman. And I'm just telling you, as a woman, that they're trying to call me a biological woman. I'm not allowed to be called a woman anymore. I'm a cis female. CIS, because that's you still have the parts you were born with. And I reject that. No, I am a WOMAN. And hear me roar, because I'm ready to roar. And that their excuse is that they want people to have a way to live a whole life and be a whole person, and no matter what that means to them. And they use the word inclusivity as part of their language, and saying, oh, this is our core value. And it's just a complete twisting around of what is true. And so, I know this is, there was a big Kid Rock had a little activity this weekend too, didn't he? Over the Bud Light
Yeah.
poster child that was being shown that I mean, this is an example of go woke, go broke. And obviously the beer industry does not understand who their audience is, because they ticked off a lot of the beer drinkers. And did any of you see that I guess it was a posting by Kid Rock?
Yeah.
I didn't see the one by him. I saw one by another guy who was covered in total tats, and he just ended with, "Hey, if you dudes are drinking light beer, you're halfway there already." You know.
Well, did you see the TikTok video of the steamroller? They placed out a bunch of Bud Light are all on and they just steamrolled over the whole thing, like thousands and thousands of cans of Bud Light just being destroyed. And and Bud Light is kind of silent right now. They're probably not sure what they made a very strong tactical error. I mean, Bud Light commercials used to be like very, American, rah, your average person, average citizen, cheer them on, all,
the horse
trucks.
Yeah, I was Clydesdales. I mean, it's like they went from being like really understanding their audience to not understanding their audience at all. It's like,
yeah. We bring this up not because we're against certain people, but it does create a lot of pain. And I just wanted to share a real quick video where somebody went with a transition and now has realized that was not what they were supposed to do. Wow. Let me just play that real quick.
It's not the one that I grew up in. They're pushing an agenda. The demonic beings are pushing an agenda to destroy and mutilate our children, get rid of them out of our homes, trust the state and the school and the teachers more than their parents. And everything is turned upside down. And I wanted you to hear an emotional testimony from a detransitioner. What's going to happen to the kids? Can't go back.
Can't go back. You can't go back. I'm sad for myself, of course. Not in a victim kind of way, but in like, I need to, this process of mourning who I was is touch and go. So, but I'm sad for humanity and the children and what's gonna happen when they're screwed up. We're gonna see what's gonna happen, and I really, really hope that all these professionals get their friggin' karma, because I know that some of them don't realize and some of them might be brainwashed and whatever.
I've had 7 surgeries. I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months. Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me, because I lost my insurance.
So we know.
So it's that, man, it's just, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It is. Remember when we had Laura from Changed?
Yes.
Change movement. So there are Lauren, thank you, from the Change movement. And I mean, it is heartbreaking, but there is hope. There are many, that was more coming out of the gay lifestyle. Can you see how transgenderism takes it up to the next level? Because there's chemical castration going on. And when he says you can't go back, there are many women who will be neutered forever. And if they have a change of heart and want to have regular families, they won't be able to.
Yeah, I saw this graphic that showed there was like in like 2008, there were like 3 centers that did this trans, gender affirming care, and now there are like 300 in America all over the place, and really people are coming out and saying this is really about the money. You actually, like, if someone goes through the transition, it's like worth $1 million to the industries that are doing this, And that's not even just the cost of the drugs. There's more. It's like there's more. So it's like it's about money. People are choosing. This is the part I think it's really sick, is that people are choosing money. You know, just like we saw through COVID-19, doctors choosing their jobs over doing what was right, do no harm. We have a soul problem in America where we're more concerned about money than we are about what's doing what is right. And I believe that's what's running this whole thing, is why people aren't speaking out. People aren't speaking up, why people are continuing to run down this path. It's like, no, you're going down a path of destruction. Turn, repent, turn 180 degrees, go the other direction. That's what repent means, is change your mind, go back. But the problem is the people that are getting destroyed are those who are struggling with their identity, young people who don't feel like I never felt, normal in my own skin. Well, heck, we all go through that. I don't know anybody who went through puberty and didn't feel weird in their own skin. Like barely anybody feels 100% perfect through that process. But we're taking people that going through puberty, using that as an excuse while they're weak and they're able to be persuaded. Oh, maybe you're a woman, not a man. And we're distorting people's reality, and then we're cutting off parts of their bodies and doing harm to them. This is, I can't think of anything else more satanic than that, or wiping out children in the womb or after the womb. It's like these are like the last stages of a culture completely in decline, and we're seeing it right before our eyes. And what happens is when good people do nothing, that's when wickedness. We need to speak out against this. And we love people that are, even people that are trans. We love them, but this is why we're speaking about it, because we love you. We want you to know the truth.
Yeah, and I know we're wrapping up, but I heard a statistic today that just broke my heart. It said that one of the largest groups of trans people going into transition are autistic children. So they're capturing them in the schools with where they're already in some struggles within their own body. Many of them could be vaccination caused injuries. But when I heard that they are preying on these autistic children, they are the largest population of people who are transitioning.
Do you think that some of this is like a God complex with some of these doctors, like they're artists and this is an easy mural to work on? And it's like, look what I can create, look what I can do. And they're pushing the envelope of this distortion of the people, but it's almost like an art. I'm just wondering if they have this in their, to be exalted. Look what I can do. Look, I can make that person look like this person. I can change this person. It's almost like a God feature. Like I've created something, that you can't. And I just wonder if some of these people are motivated by that. Plus the money.
Pride and greed are two of the biggest motivators, but there's an evil above them. And this agenda is being driven from very dark places.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we covered a lot of things.
Need to keep praying.
World War III, Taiwan, Ukraine, Alvin Bragg's, the trans movement, and the heartbreaks of what it creates. So
we didn't cover the Robert Kennedy going his candidacy for presidency, or Alexander Soros going to the White House 14 times. We'll cover some of that next week.
This has been Wake the Bear Radio on KSCO 1080 on your AM dial.